Hospital janitor Marcus Williams was cleaning Dean Martin's dressing room in 1971 when he found a briefcase full of medical bills with paid-in-full stamps, all for children whose families he recognized from the pediatric ward where he worked nights, proving that sometimes the greatest acts of compassion happen in complete silence, witnessed only by those who understand that true generosity never seeks recognition or applause. It was Thursday morning, November 18, 1971, and Marcus Williams was completing his cleaning duties in the entertainment wing of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles. Marcus had worked as a night janitor at the hospital for 8 years, splitting his time between the pediatric ward and the special events areas where the hospital hosted charity performances and fundraising galas. The previous evening, Dean Martin had performed a benefit concert in the hospital's main auditorium, raising money for the Pediatric Cancer Research Program. Dean's annual charity shows at Cedars-Sinai had become legendary events that attracted Hollywood celebrities and wealthy donors while generating substantial funds for children's medical care. Marcus had watched Dean's performance from the back of the auditorium during his break, and he had been impressed by the entertainer's genuine warmth and connection with the audience. Dean had spoken movingly about the importance of supporting sick children and had seemed genuinely emotional when discussing the hospital's work with young cancer patients. After the show, Dean had used his assigned dressing room to change clothes and meet with hospital administrators and major donors. Marcus was responsible for cleaning the dressing room after such events, ensuring that it was ready for the next scheduled use. As Marcus entered the dressing room to begin his cleaning routine, he noticed that someone had left a brown leather briefcase on the table near the mirror. The briefcase appeared expensive and was slightly open, revealing papers and documents inside. Marcus's first instinct was to contact hospital security to report the forgotten item, but as he approached the briefcase to examine it more closely, he saw something that made him pause with curiosity and concern. The visible papers in the briefcase appeared to be medical bills and financial documents, all bearing the letterhead of Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Marcus could see that the bills were marked with red stamps reading "Paid in Full," and several of the patient names on the documents were familiar to him from his work in the pediatric ward. Marcus recognized the names because he had developed relationships with many of the families whose children were receiving long-term treatment at the hospital. During his 8 years of night shifts, Marcus had comforted crying parents in hospital corridors, had brought coffee to families keeping bedside vigils, and had witnessed the devastating impact that medical bills could have on families already struggling with a child's serious illness. Marcus was particularly surprised to see the name Rodriguez on several of the paid bills, because he knew that the Rodriguez family had been facing severe financial hardship due to their daughter Sophia's leukemia treatment. Just 2 weeks earlier, Marcus had overheard Mrs. Rodriguez crying in the hospital chapel, praying for a way to pay for Sophia's continued chemotherapy treatments. Curious and concerned about the implications of what he was seeing, Marcus carefully opened the briefcase further to examine more of its contents. What he discovered was a comprehensive collection of medical bills, financial records, and correspondence that told an extraordinary story of anonymous charitable giving. The briefcase contained dozens of medical bills from Cedars-Sinai, all marked "Paid in Full," representing families that Marcus recognized from the pediatric ward. There were bills for cancer treatments, surgical procedures, extended hospital stays, and specialized medications, all of which had been quietly paid by someone who had apparently been monitoring the financial struggles of families with sick children. Marcus found a manila folder labeled "Confidential, DM Foundation" that contained correspondence between someone identified only as DM and the hospital's billing department. The letters discussed arrangements for anonymous payment of medical expenses for families who met specific criteria related to financial need and their children's medical conditions. One letter, dated 6 months earlier, outlined a systematic approach to identifying families who were struggling with medical bills and ensuring that their expenses were paid without the families knowing the source of the assistance. The letter specified that payments should be made in a way that allowed families to believe they had received assistance through hospital charity programs or insurance adjustments. Marcus realized that he was looking at evidence of a secret charitable operation that had been quietly helping families in the pediatric ward for what appeared to be several years. The scope and organization of the assistance suggested that someone with substantial financial resources had been systematically monitoring the hospital's pediatric patients and intervening to prevent families from facing financial ruin due to medical expenses. As Marcus examined more of the documents, he found records indicating that the anonymous benefactor had paid medical bills totaling over $200,000 during the previous year alone. The bills covered treatments for dozens of children with various serious medical conditions, and the assistance had apparently been provided without any of the families knowing who was responsible for their unexpected financial relief. Marcus also discovered a handwritten note that provided a clue about the identity of the mysterious benefactor. The note, written on Sands Hotel stationery, included instructions for the hospital's billing department about specific families whose bills should receive priority attention. The note was signed simply DM and included a Las Vegas phone number. Marcus suddenly realized that the briefcase belonged to Dean Martin and that the famous entertainer had been secretly funding a massive charitable operation focused on helping families with sick children at Cedars-Sinai. The timing of Marcus's discovery, immediately after Dean's benefit performance, suggested that Dean had been using his charity concert appearances as opportunities to review and coordinate his anonymous assistance programs. Marcus was overwhelmed by the revelation that Dean Martin had been quietly paying the medical bills of families whose struggles Marcus had witnessed firsthand during his work in the pediatric ward. Marcus thought about all the families he had seen celebrating unexpected insurance approvals or mysterious charity assistance, never knowing that their relief had been made possible by a celebrity who demanded no recognition for his generosity. Marcus faced a dilemma about what to do with his discovery. He understood that Dean had clearly intended for his charitable activities to remain secret, and Marcus respected the desire for anonymity that had motivated Dean to structure his assistance in a way that protected both his privacy and the dignity of the families he was helping. But Marcus also felt a powerful desire to thank Dean for the assistance he had provided to families that Marcus cared about. And he wanted Dean to understand the impact his generosity had made on people who worked in the hospital and witnessed the daily struggles of families dealing with childhood illness. Marcus decided to wait for Dean to return for his forgotten briefcase, giving him an opportunity to express his gratitude while respecting Dean's desire for privacy about his charitable activities. Later that afternoon, Dean returned to the hospital with his assistant to retrieve the briefcase he had left in the dressing room. Marcus was finishing his shift, but he had arranged to be available when Dean arrived so he could personally return the briefcase and have a brief conversation about what he had discovered. When Dean entered the dressing room, Marcus approached him with the briefcase and a respectful but emotional demeanor. "Mr. Martin," Marcus said, "you forgot this briefcase last night. I found it when I was cleaning the room this morning." Dean accepted the briefcase with thanks, but Marcus continued speaking before Dean could leave. "Mr. Martin, I want you to know that I work in the pediatric ward here at night, and I recognize a lot of the names I saw on those bills. I don't know if you realize how much your help has meant to those families, but I see them every day, and I want to thank you for what you're doing for them." Dean looked surprised and somewhat concerned about Marcus's knowledge of the briefcase contents, but Marcus quickly reassured him about his discretion. "I understand that you want to keep this private, and I respect that completely," Marcus continued. "I'm not going to tell anyone what I saw. I just wanted you to know that someone sees the good you're doing and that it matters more than you might realize. Dean was moved by Marcus's words and his obvious sincerity. After a moment of consideration, Dean sat down and invited Marcus to join him for a conversation about the pediatric ward and the families they both cared about. "Marcus, how long have you been working with these families?" Dean asked. 8 years, Marcus replied. "I've seen a lot of kids get better, and I've seen some that didn't make it. But the hardest part is watching the parents worry about money when they should just be focused on helping their children get well." Dean explained that he had started his anonymous assistance program 3 years earlier after meeting a family whose child had died while they were struggling to pay for experimental treatments. Dean had realized that his success as an entertainer gave him resources that could prevent other families from facing similar impossible choices between their financial stability and their children's medical care. "I don't want recognition for this," Dean told Marcus. "The families don't need to feel grateful to me. They need to focus on their kids. But I'm glad someone understands what we're trying to accomplish." Dean and Marcus developed a discreet partnership that allowed Marcus to provide Dean with information about families who were struggling financially, while maintaining the anonymity that Dean insisted upon for his charitable activities. Marcus became Dean's unofficial liaison with the pediatric ward, identifying families who needed assistance and providing feedback about the impact of Dean's help. Marcus never revealed Dean's identity to the families, but he was able to reassure Dean that his assistance was reaching the people who needed it most and was making a genuine difference in their lives. Over the following years, Dean's anonymous charity operation expanded to include other hospitals in Los Angeles and Las Vegas, with Marcus helping to develop systems for identifying and assisting families in need. Marcus eventually became a paid coordinator for Dean's charitable foundation, allowing him to work full-time on helping families while maintaining the secrecy that Dean required. The partnership between Dean and Marcus helped hundreds of families over the next decade, providing financial assistance that allowed parents to focus on their children's recovery rather than worrying about medical bills. Marcus kept detailed but confidential records of the families they helped, and he regularly updated Dean about the children who recovered and went on to live healthy, normal lives, thanks in part to the treatment that Dean's assistants had made possible. Marcus never publicly revealed Dean's charitable activities, even after Dean's death in 1995. But Marcus spoke at Dean's private memorial service about the entertainer's commitment to helping sick children, and his insistence that charity should be about the recipient's needs rather than the donor's recognition. In his tribute to Dean, Marcus explained that he had witnessed firsthand how Dean's anonymous generosity had changed the lives of countless families, and that Dean's approach to charity had taught him that the most meaningful giving happens when no one is watching and no one expects thanks. Marcus established a small foundation in Dean's memory that continues to provide anonymous assistance to families with sick children, following the principles of discreet, dignified charity that Dean had demonstrated throughout their partnership. The briefcase that Marcus discovered in 1971 is now part of a private archive documenting Dean's charitable activities, serving as evidence that some of the most important work in the world happens without fanfare, recognition, or public acknowledgement. If this story of anonymous generosity and the power of secret charity moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with anyone who needs to know that the greatest acts of compassion often happen in complete silence, witnessed only by those who understand that true giving never seeks recognition or applause. Have you ever discovered someone's secret act of kindness? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to ring that notification bell for more incredible stories about the hidden compassion that makes the world a better place when no one is looking.